So even if you're a data scientist, you have to have an appreciation for what data engineering is.
Someone who's working in, let's say, a data science would never want to kind of go back. But there's always this feeling that, data science is that sexy beast of a
I
thing.
completely agree, and that's a problem.
We are living in a post-ChatGPT world. What they built for you so quickly is almost magical. Makes me think whether software engineering job to a large extent is on the line.
It is disruptive for sure. Will the disruption make everybody jobless? I don't think so.
If you look back from your journey, what made them click?
The world was also different back then.
From a growth or scaling perspective of a services company, where do funding part come into it?
Most of the investment in AI right now is still in the POCs, the proof of concepts.
Hi Mukund, thanks a lot for coming for this podcast with us. Your journey can be very inspiring to our audience, given that you are in a very early stage of building Acies Global. What does it feel like? Give a quick introduction about who you are, what's your journey been, what's Acies, and what you're trying to bring to
Sure.
people.
I've been in the data technology space all my life, right? And been about 20 years specifically in the data science area. I live in Chicago. I've been in Chicago for the last 30 years. I've been there to study and never left.
Okay.
I did my MBA from University of Chicago. I went there for my master's in computer science, and after that I worked with Motorola for a few years. Then I did my MBA from the University of Chicago and joined a company called GS Associates, right? And did consulting for the pharma healthcare world for a couple of years, and then Mu Sigma at that point of time was just getting started. I jumped in, one of the earliest employees there, and spent 12 plus years on the leadership team there.
Okay, that's long.
And in the data science space, and then 2019 is when I started Acies Global, and the idea was, one of my observations from being in the data science space and working with several Fortune 500 clients closely was that a lot of the insights we were generating, a lot of analytics we did for everybody from the largest retailer to the largest pharma company to the largest airline company and so on and so forth. Consumption of a lot of the insights still happening in Excels and PowerPoints, right? And my hypothesis for that is the people who are doing the analytics not as closely familiar with technology or engineering, right? And vice versa. When you're building applications, a lot of business and technology inputs that go into it, not thinking into what else can be done from a data perspective once the application launches, so that you consume the insights in the application itself, right? So and the reason for that is obviously the one side doesn't know the other side as well, and they're not working in tandem. So the idea behind Acies, when I started out, was to bring data engineering and analytics and technology together, right, to help consume insights at scale, right, on a regular basis. And that's how the idea of Acies started, right? And what that means is that we think about what we do in three buckets, right? One is the creation of insights, which is your data science, analytics, AI, ML, what have you. The second bucket is what I think of as scaling, right? So first is creation. The second bucket is scaling, right? And scaling means being able to do, so let's say you're building a model, a forecasting model, or you're analyzing, customer churn, whatever. Right? You can do it one time, easily, but how do you make it repeatable, and how do you, factor in for new elements that are going to crop up, right? Yeah. Business changes, more, if you're doing forecasting, more SKUs that get added, more regions that need to come in, and so on and so forth, right? If you're not thinking about, scaling while you're creating, you're going to have to throw away a lot of what you've done in the past, right? So, so the second bucket is what we call as scaling, and that's your, data engineering, building the right pipeline, the right data models, right, and data governance, data quality, and so on and so forth. Right. The third bucket is what we think of as consumption. So you got to consume what you're creating. There's so much work we've done in the past that don't see the light of day in terms of usage on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all these three buckets. So the skill sets are a little bit different. Our goal is to bring them together a little bit more because they have to operate in a continuum. Right. And what I mean by that is when you're doing your creation, you have to be thinking about scaling and consumption. When you're building your data models and you're doing the data engineering, you have to be thinking about how it's going to be consumed as well as what creation am I enabling by building this data warehouse, this data model. Right. And same with consumption. Consumption will lead to more creation. Right. So they have to operate in a continuum. It's almost like in college, people have a major and a minor. Right. So even if you're a data scientist, you have to have an appreciation for what data engineering is.
Absolutely.
Right. Even if you're a data engineer, you have to have an appreciation.
But that doesn't happen as much from
it doesn't.
It doesn't. Yeah.
It doesn't. Right. And even now, this is the vision.
Yes.
Are we, doing it every day?
Yeah.
Right. No, we are in the process, but we want to set it up in such a way, right? To set the company up in such a way that at least the mindset is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So we have people who move between these functions. We have data engineers who have now stepped into data science. Right. And so they get an appreciation for what that side is. I'm not expecting everybody to become all three. Not possible. Right. But having an appreciation for the other side is important so that you can consume insights at scale.
But then at the same time, there's a lot of this from a talent perspective, or someone who's working in, let's say, a data science would never want to kind of go back. Or there's always this feeling that, data science is that sexy beast of a thing.
I completely agree. And that's a problem.
And a data engineer would always want to move towards that glorified data science side of it, which is fair and relatable to a large extent. But what happens to all of that data engineering part or the other part of it, which also requires probably as much, if not rigor and talent,
correct,
and technical know-how?
Correct. There's two parts to this question. One is the mindset of the hierarchy, right? Where you say, hey, data science is better than, and even within data science, companies create hierarchies, right? Oh, you are a, business intelligence. Then there's analytics, there's advanced analytics, there's data science, right? And that, I think it leads to issues as well, right? So I think the mindset shift is more important. And again, I'm not saying that every data engineer will become a data scientist, right? And I have lots of data engineers in the company that don't want to be data scientists. I have a lot of software engineers who are very, very content with what they're doing. There are people that come in with a mentality that they want to be a data scientist, and sometimes they're reluctant to say, want to pick up the other side. What we're saying is we'll put you in an environment where either you have to work closely and enable scaling while you're doing creation, right? So you sit with another data engineer, you learn a little bit of what you would have to do differently while creating if you want to scale it, right? You create the forecasting model first, right? And then you want to scale it to thousands of people. Now I'll bring in a data engineer into the team. He'll show you how we will rewrite what you had written in the first place to enable scaling.
Right.
But some people have been happy to embrace that shift. Yeah, I think, in the future, I think there will be a role of a digital scientist that grows more. I mean, if you, as a data scientist right now, don't know MLOps or refuse to learn MLOps, you will become redundant at some point of time.
There is a lot of resistance among data scientists to move towards that DevOps, cloud side, MLOps side of the world.
I think they will lose out. Sometimes it's hard to translate context. It is inefficient for companies, right? So some data scientist comes and builds the models, right? And then he has to transition everything to somebody else to do it. And then that person may have to rewrite the code, okay? If it was not written in the first place, correctly in the first place. There are mindsets that are mind blocks that exist. I don't know how to change that completely, but we are trying to, we have to do it from the ground up. The last 2 years, we've had probably about 50, 60, freshers that joined out of college. I think the best way to do it is inculcate that mindset from the ground up. It's going to be hard for somebody who's done 10 years of data engineering. I come in and tell them to change the way they think. It's going to be harder.
We are living in a post-chat GPT world. We are living in a world where generative AI is the hype, where everybody is speaking about it. Last week, or last week, there's a new tool which came into being called Cursor. Have you heard of?
I've heard of it. I don't know it completely.
So there's a lot of talk around generative AI impacting coders, impacting software engineers, impacting or doing their work. I have seen a lot of these tasks or these videos. In fact, I have worked on this Cursor and GitHub Copilot.
Yeah.
What they build for you so quickly is almost magical. And that makes me think whether software engineering job to a large extent is on the line because of all of this. It'll become more easier, or all of these tools will be a support function to a larger ecosystem of software engineering, or how we develop codes and data and all of that. What are your thoughts around it?
It's a good question. I'm also waiting to see what will happen, but I have a hypothesis, right? Coders will have to exist, right? Data analysts, data scientists, data engineers. I don't think the jobs are going to go away. The nature of what you have to do may change.
Okay.
Right? In the sense that you use that as a tool. I think there may be some cases where, and there may be some functions, some kinds of tasks that go away. Right?
So we will see some kind of a
some kind of
juggling.
It is disruptive for sure.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Will the disruption, make everybody jobless? I don't think so. But you have to evolve, to change the nature of how you're working today. Right? And it goes back to, our talk about, will a data scientist want to learn data engineering? Will a data engineering want to appreciate what software development looks like? For all you know, the disruption may force that to happen.
If there would not be a separate data scientist or a coder, everybody would want to learn.
Maybe the lines will blur even more than they are today. I think the lines, even from a data science need to know MLOps, I think it is blurred to a large extent. I have a lot of people in my company who picked up that nuance very quickly over the last few years. Right. So I think the lines may blur even more. There's going to be disruption for sure. But maybe it'll force mindset shift that are very hard to force otherwise.
Let's go back to your journey as an early employee of Mu Sigma. It's very interesting. From ZS Associate, which is healthcare and pharma focused analytics outfit, to Mu Sigma, and that to being a founding member. So you being among the first few folks who joined Mu Sigma. Mu Sigma grew very fast. I mean, I believe, if I'm not wrong, Mu Sigma was probably the first unicorn of India, or among the first unicorn. I remember Mu Sigma becoming a unicorn around the same time when Flipkart became that. It grew super fast. If you look back from your journey, what made them click? What made them grow so fast, so early?
I think the vision of Mu Sigma was great. Right, focused on the art of problem solving, and not come in as an expert and a consultant. And the world was also different back then, right? Data analytics was not a hot topic. That's I think that time still there were some functions in some industries, financial services, where you have to do a lot of modeling to from a compliance perspective, insurance, where you have to do rate making, where you need actuaries and all that, where among the first industries and functions.
And that was around 2008, 2009.
2005, 2006.
Even before that.
2005, 2006, right? And in that world, the freshness of thought, right, and breaking against tradition, where, the McKinseys of the world talk about knowledge, right? Because the need was just catching on, right? That resonated well, and and a lot of companies started experimenting more, right? Once from the financial services world and the initial few functions, talent was also in shorter supply at that point of time, and slowly more companies from more business functions, right? More kinds of problems. Everybody started to explore over the next 6 to 7 years. By 2012, or so, I mean, everybody wanted to be in data analytics, right? Data has exploded, problems have exploded. People are still thinking about new things that they want to solve that they not thought about before. And now with Gen AI, right, even more,
Yeah, yeah.
right, even more, from the perspective of building simple reports, understanding what has happened in the past, right, and and what are the metrics that I need to follow.
Right.
To I think now the consumption wants to be more in real time, right? How do I?
Yeah, so that's a very good point, which is companies now want something which is more real time, which is more productionized, which is closer to their operations,
Mhm.
rather than a model which was developed ad hoc in silo.
Mhm.
Companies are looking for more engineering to be done
Right.
inside
Correct.
the analytic solution itself.
Which is the point I was making earlier, which is why the creation, scaling, and consumption have to come together.
Right, right.
Right. And you want to consume it right now.
Absolutely.
When I have to make a decision, when the customer is in front of me, when I'm on a call, right, with a customer, how do I nudge the sales guy to say the right thing to close the deal? Right. So, and that's where I think people want right now, right? Because you cannot compete anymore on building operational reports, right, that tell you what has happened in the past, right? It has to be, because everybody is doing it. I mean, 15, 20 years back, not everybody was doing it. I'm not saying everybody is doing it well even today. There are still companies that have to go through that journey and improve that, because see, data has exploded. One thing that has not changed in the last 20 years is when in 2006, companies would complain about this is the right time to do this because I don't have the right data. Even now, people have the same complaint, right? And the problem has only got more complicated, right? Because the data has exploded. There are hundreds of transformations that go into 500 pipelines that.
And data engineering has now taken center stage as well, because people, as you rightly pointed out, data has exploded.
Correct.
So companies are trying to figure out how to bring all of that together. They are still in silos, all of that.
Correct.
So data engineering has largely also taken a center stage.
That there's a huge shortage of that talent. It's evolving so fast, it's hard to keep up. Okay. And the foundations have to be strong, because data engineering, if I want to, every company we go to has a different. I can't hire one data engineer and say he'll fit in everywhere, right? But if you have the right foundations on the principles of, how pipeline should work, you can learn any of those tech stacks, right? You can be on AWS or Azure, or it could be SSIS, it could be Airflow, whatever it is. Right? You can learn all of those if you have that, if your foundations are right.
There's a very interesting article which came just few days back from Paul Graham, which is founders mode, right? I want to delve a little bit into that, which is founder mode versus manager mode, which is for early companies, there's a founders and entrepreneurs have a thought process of how to run that organization, how to scale it. But that changes when usually you go into a mid-size or a large-size organization. From your perspective, your journey from Mu Sigma to your own organization, how has your thought process changed during that time? I'm sure you are at that founders mode largely right now. But what is that thinking really? And how do you think of scale?
I think I'm still in the founders mode, but force myself to and surround myself with people who can think scale a little bit more. Right. I'm fortunate enough to have a great leadership team who fight with me every day, right? And tell me that I'm not thinking right from a scale perspective. But the difference will be in when you're a founder, and when you're still smaller, there are lots of things that keep you awake at night, right? That about what I worry about is, hey, what if this client decides to have a budget cut, or has a budget cut and decides to slow down, because and what I worried about is less even the margins or the dollars, about how do I keep the people motivated, right? So and the other aspect of when you're smaller is you have this tendency to worry about everything yourself.
You start micromanaging to a large extent.
It may not even be micromanagement, but but if you ask some of my team, they may say that it is micromanagement, right? But just the ability to let go and trust and scale from that perspective is very important. And I'm forcing myself to do that now, where I say some tasks that have to give it to some people and they will do it, right? You use me or anybody else as a resource. The other thing that will take time is when you go to the CEO or manager mode, the more systems in place that allow you to scale yourself and the leadership team and the next level and so on and so forth. We don't have those yet. We want to start thinking about putting them in place, right? So somebody, the way I go and talk to a client about the company, I want there should be systems in place that allow 50, 100 other people to do the same thing. It's still not there.
Right.
And those are things that we have to think about. And anything we do, can't think about doing it for now. Right? You also have to think about whether, 2 years later, it is enabling to grow, right? Even if you put a training program together, right? And we're hiring a lot. We have about 30, 40 interns, joining in the next few months. Okay. And how do we put a system in place? We can't rely on the same half a dozen people to run this over and over again, right? Burn them out, right? Because it's not like we're hiring them exclusively for that. They're doing a lot of other things, and then they're taking this on because they are part of building the firm. But then how do you put a system in place that says that, okay, when I'm imparting the training and guiding the interns to learn, how do I get 2 other people to do it along with me next time? I'm not. So those are things that we are starting to put in place. But when you're in the so the book by Peter Thiel, right, 0 to 1, what it takes to go from 0 to 1 is not the same as what it takes to grow from 1 to 100. And the mindset is different. When we grow to a certain level, I may not even be the right person to have to lead that organization from that, from a 500 to a 10,000, right? Somebody else may have to come and do it.
I want to ask a very controversial question from you, specifically from a services company's thought process. And you have spent last 20 years from that lens. From a growth or scaling perspective of a services company, right? Where do funding part come into picture? The reason why I'm asking this is that from a services company's perspective, funding really doesn't make sense. But I've seen a lot of organizations taking a large amount of funding because you can only scale as much of the demand that you are getting. Right? If you get a demand for a larger project, you scale that way and you descale similarly. Why do companies, especially services company, pick funding? Do they really need that?
Okay, so I don't have funding yet, or I'm not gone to the market. I'm not looking bootstrapped as of now. Right?
And a similar question: why are you not looking?
No, obviously comes with pros and cons. Pros is obviously it's also a testament to it's a stamp saying, oh, you arrived in some ways. Okay, right? Telling the market that. So I have a certain value, right? So that may be one reason why, and the reason may different from founder to founder. The other could be that there are some areas that you're not even investing, right? I want to get we are profitable, obviously, scaling as
you scale as much as you.
We have a certain outlook for the demand, and then we scale accordingly. But there may be areas where you want to invest in that you're not able to invest in,
like
today.
Marketing, sales,
which are not billable, roles there. You don't, it's going to hit your margin, right? So that could be the one more. The other thing is for us, ourselves, whatever margins we're making, we're reinvesting and building solutions. We have a couple of products and solutions that we are building in areas that we're very passionate about. We talked about data exploding, so we're doing something when data observability, right? Lightweight solution that look at the data and tell you from an output perspective, from a data analyst, a business analyst perspective, if something is wrong automatically, because the cost of wrong data, right, is getting higher and higher, right? So how do you track that? Is something that we're investing. The other is in sustainability, and we're also looking at GenAI and saying that we have tons of customers that we are working with on a PO, lot of them on the POC side, right? But there are patterns of and you can observe the patterns, build accelerators, right? Because the whole promise of GenAI is that the time to value is going to dramatically decrease, right? And if you want to do that, you can't afford to do 6-month POCs and say the time to value is going to decrease, right? So how do you building accelerators for those? If you want to, build those solutions, sometimes those, if you want to really scale those, you will need to maybe bring in external.
Yeah, you need capital for
You
that.
need capital for that. So those may be.
Those may be the reason that a lot of services companies would want to kind of bring
Correct.
external funding, but the external funding also comes with a caveat that they expect you to grow 10x very quickly. Service companies do not grow that fast.
Correct. I mean, yeah, some companies do.
After some, let's say, after a certain scale.
After a certain stage, it becomes harder to, right? And the solutions are the ones that can be, give you the hockey stick again.
Absolutely. Yes.
Right. So when after a certain point, you're going to have some hockey sticks along the way, some dips, right? But the solutions are another way for you to, at least from a margin perspective, it does actually.
It definitely gives better margin.
Correct.
Right. So let me come to that margin part of it, right? Which is largely, do you believe in last few years margins around analytics and data science services is getting squeezed? Also because of various factors playing in. One is the advent of these GCCs in India. So, for example, organizations now believe that, look, why do I have to really give it to a third party? I can set up my own setup in India and get it delivered at probably a better ROI. I have my control on my data. I have control on my processes and the standards that I want to follow. Why do I really need to give it to a third party and have to bear all of those challenges and risk?
Correct. And sometimes they may also say that I want to keep it internal.
Yes.
Because a lot of people start believe analytics is core to my business.
Yes. So do you believe that's squeezing margins, squeezing businesses? And whether do you think all of these changes recently are impacting overall analytics services market?
I think there will be some impact, right? And again, like the GenAI question, there may be other ways in which services companies will have to transform themselves to work in tandem with the GCCs, right? And I'm also trying to figure it out at this point of time. We do work with India arms for some of our clients successfully, not impacted margin as much yet. Because see, I think margins get impacted by something else also, right? Even if I'm, charging the same rate that we're charging 3-4 years ago, about the same, the cost of the resources has not remained the same.
Yes.
Right, and some of it is also because of GCCs who can afford to pay.
Yes.
A lot more than we can. So I think the margins will get squeezed a little bit in the short term, but
over a long term, you believe it would definitely.
I think things will evolve, and those who evolve with, can innovate and evolve with what is useful at that point of time will do well. There will be people that are left behind as well. I don't know where I'll fall, but I hope you'll able to figure something out.
Sure. What I have noticed and what I've through my conversation with different clients and other folks in the industry is that largely because of the advent of AI, clients are saying, let's wait and watch where this thing goes, because this definitely looks magical. This definitely look promising, and that's why a lot of these budget allocations around analytics services and data science and data, etc., is on hold, because they believe that largely AI is going to solve a lot of other problems that probably analytics is trying to solve, and they're still on that wait and watch. What are your thoughts around that?
I haven't encountered that too much yet. It could happen, right? But what I've seen is that so we are working with three, maybe half a dozen clients that are, in various stages saying, help, I'm going to pour money into AI and we are helping in a small way, right? But most of the investment in AI right now is still in the POCs, the proof of concepts, right? And they're not, at least the ones we are working with, they're not made huge investments yet in that.
And maybe they would not have even made huge impact for them as well.
Yeah, because see, I mean, I think 80% of the, even 95% of the companies are still, most of their work is still POCs, right? So the way I see it, there's two buckets of how I classify some of the AI, transformation that's happening. One is some kind of intelligent automation already in place, and GenAI can enhance that, right? For example, reading, user reviews for your product from like millions of, reviews and various sources. So NLP was already in play to kind of summarize and and give you an insight into what people are saying. Right now, the way with GenAI, what's happening is you can go the extra mile, do it faster, do it better, and also maybe come up with a recommendation saying, hey, here's what product team I think you should do, here's what marketing you should do, right? So that one bucket. There, I think because there's already an intelligent solution that's proved, right, and you're making it better, it's in the deployment stage. Okay, there you may actually lose out a little bit and say that, do I need these NLP engineers anymore? I'm just, once I have the solution, let that solution run, right? So that for sure, right? The second bucket is where the larger set of activities happening, which is
newer ideas,
things you didn't even think you could get done before that are becoming real because of the possibilities that GenAI is opening up, right? And these are largely connecting dots that you couldn't connect easily before, right? And then coming up with some kind of a recommendation, right? A couple of use cases that we are working on right now. Both, two of them are on the, the examples on the sales enablement. Okay, so which is, there's a company, but there's a pharma company that's saying, I'm reaching out to the physicians 1,000 different ways, right? Through emails, some sales rep calling on them. They go to some of the conferences. I have a lot of input. Okay. How do I connect the dots and then real time say this is what the message from the sales rep should be to this particular physician, personalized, immediate thing, right? The other is, a company, legally helps, people get benefits that they may be eligible for, but they don't even know, right? And so people call in, and you have to quickly figure out whether what help you can get for them from thousands of use cases that have happened in the past. But you have to do it on the fly and ask them the next questions. Otherwise, you're going to lose that potential customer. Why you have to do a POC is the problem may seem, it's very obvious that GenAI can help, but is it even practical to use GenAI at scale because the cost may be so prohibitive? Not it doesn't come free, right? From a compute perspective,
it is pretty costly, yes.
Right? So there, I don't. I think everybody is in the let's experiment stage, and that's the majority of the world today. And there, I don't see it. To your point, saying I'll stop everything else and do this, right? Because what the first example I talked about is something that is getting done today, and I can use GenAI and get rid of this. That's a smaller percentage of what is happening today. More things may move to that, right? And that's when how we work with GenAI and what we do as a data scientist or data engineer may evolve, and hopefully we'll figure it out.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Bhasker. Fantastic.